bringing you up to date on all the action from a busy weekend of women's soccer. This is USL Super League Game Week on SiriusXM FC.
It is match day in the Super League. There's so much to discuss alongside former All-SEC standout Marion Crowder. I'm Anna Witte. We are going to discuss some trends happening on the field, off the field in the Super League, and we are joined by Lexington's captain, Shea Moyer. Marion, great to see you again. I got to ask, because you've been a homeowner a lot longer than me, and I've spent my last few days kind of decorating the front of my house for Halloween. Okay. What is your approach to Halloween and decorating?
Okay. Well, Halloween, the fall season, really the month of October specifically, is my husband's favorite time of the year. A little bit like narcissistic, we would say, because it's his birthday. So I'm like, oh, okay. Is it because you were born, or is it because you love fall? Neither here nor there. Okay. He absolutely loves October. He likes it when it's hot, like for about 2 weeks. And then he's like, okay, cool weather. I need it. Fire pits, football, fantasy, flannels, all the things. So I am not, shocking to no one that knows me, I am not like a big spirit, like Halloween spirit, fall spirit. That's just like not me, but we leaned in. It was an excuse for me to take a trip to Anthropology, which I know you love as well. And he was just picking out all of the Halloween stuff. And I was like, you know what, let's just go for it. If this means that I could get a new Anthropology candle,
yes,
I'm in. So that was the place that we met, was Anthropology.
Okay, I like that. I've gone the Anthro route as well. I actually went to the farmer's market and bought a ton of pumpkins. I did like the spider webs, on my bushes. I'm gonna get like a big fake spider to put all the spider webs.
You're in.
I'm in.
You're in.
This is like my first fall as a homeowner, and I feel like I kind of had to buy in and like match what's happening on my street. So I will say, Marion,
are you gonna trick or treat?
Am I gonna trick or treat?
Are you gonna be out there with candy?
Oh yeah, I probably won't be sitting outside, but when you ring my doorbell, I'll definitely be handing out candy. Are you not?
No, I won't even be. I have not. This always used to be my thing. It's like, I'm always like calling a game on Halloween. Typically for SEC play, that's like the last day. But also for like when I was growing up and playing, all of my girls listening, remembering the ODP world, that was when the region team would go, that week of Thanksgiving week was when the region team would go down to Boca Raton for, the tournament. And so I just feel like maybe that's why I'm not as into it.
Maybe that's why.
Yeah. I've just never really celebrated the fall holidays. So.
I mean, I get Halloween. I have to travel on Friday morning, but I'm excited to at least get like that first Halloween in my new house. But I have to
let me know how it goes.
I'm excited. Yeah, I'll definitely update the show on how October 31st goes. Okay, so we're about halfway through this Super League season, or rather the fall season. It is crazy to think about. And we've seen really a change in how teams are playing, specifically Brooklyn and Lexington. Brooklyn has a really chaotic October. They've got 7 matches in 25 days. They've lost the last 3 of their 4 matches. Why has this momentum for Brooklyn kind of slowed them down?
Yeah, I like that we're doing this right now, because I feel like we've had enough time to digest some trends going on. And I feel like the 2 teams that you just mentioned, Brooklyn and Lexington, represent the fact that as quickly as it can be bad, it can be really good, and vice versa. And for Brooklyn, that really is the story. The question circling my mind, Anna, is like, how do you start the season 3-0 with such decisive wins, such decisive performances, to now be 0-3, right? In your last stretch of matches. And there are a couple of factors involved here. Obviously, a head coach, Jess Silva, comes in, and we're seeing tweaks with the lineup a bit. And I do think lineup inconsistency really does have an effect, especially on such a young team and such a team that hasn't had a full off season to develop and train and get to know each other. Anytime that you can provide a consistency as a head coach, that's going to help. But I totally understand where Jess is coming from, right? You'd rather tinker with it now and figure out what works, as opposed to doing that, let's say, in the spring season. So I do think that's a factor. The other factor, I think, kind of goes right in hand with that, is this Purcell and Martinez battle that we're still seeing in the back of the net. I think that it's asking a lot of the defenders in front of both of those goalkeepers, as well as the goalkeepers themselves, when you don't have that clear-cut picture of the number one versus the number two, just in terms of defining roles, just in terms of, okay, what communication and what style of communication should I really, as a center back, be honing into to understand? Is it Purcell's? Is it Martinez? They're going to have nuances to the way that they communicate, to the way that they play. So I would urge the head coaches of Brooklyn to sort out that number one sooner than later. And that's just me. I just think that you need a clear number one. And then my last note is that I just think, when we talked about Brooklyn, it was all about who can stop Mackenzie George, who can stop Isabel Cox, who can stop Jess Garziano. But the reason we were talking about that is because they had such an interesting connection that was so impressive for us to see so quickly. When you have three individuals that are that talented, seeing them connect as a true three front was really impressive. That's where I think we're seeing the decline on the offensive side of the ball. It feels very individualistic and not in the best way, as opposed to, hey, we are a connected three front. We're going to do some decoy runs to open up certain players at certain points, but we're all going to try to get on the end of service. Right now, it just feels like players like Mackenzie George are just trying to do it all themselves.
Mackenzie George in particular, because she's really isolated herself on the flank at times. And to your point, Coach Silva really said that like this whole entire team, they get along really well. And she's really been impressed with how they've taken that onto the field. She gives them that freedom in the attacking third, but then it makes you think, is there a little too much freedom at this point in the season where they are and how they haven't been able to get results of late? The goalkeeper situation is important as well. But then you look at Lexington, the complete opposite problem. Honestly, Marion, to start the show, we were really down on Lexington. And I thought it was going to be up to Coach Dickey to like really get some new players and change the tide. But now they've got their center backs some consistent minutes together. They have their new midfielder in Claire Winter, who has really given this team some stability. They put Madison Parsons in that 9 role, and now they've gotten results in their last 3 matches.
Yeah, and just to kind of connect the dots of Brooklyn and Lexington, the additions, the pinpoint additions of Amanda Allen and Claire Winter, that is what has freed up Mad Parsons to be really this dynamic player that we're seeing her, this true goal scorer that we're seeing. She needed the additions and the balance of those two individuals. When we're talking about Brooklyn, you just alluded to it, Anna. It's we're not seeing the balance of players willing to do the work off of the ball to open up other teammates or other spaces. And right now we're seeing Lexington do just that. They have this mentality, as opposed to Brooklyn maybe perhaps right now, where I would actually argue that none of the attackers are necessarily thinking about how do I, as an individual, score. It's all about, I know that this is the space we need to exploit. What position am I in so that I can make that happen? Whether it is me making the run into that space, or maybe it's me pulling a defender so my number 9 can run into that space. Right now, obviously, we're actually starting to see them. We've known that they have a good attacking front, right? They've always been able to score goals, but I just think the gears that we're seeing turning in the attacking front are more complex and more dynamic than even the score sheets allow. And for Lexington, I mean, Anna, would you have ever thought that we are talking about a potential unbeaten October for this group?
No, a 2-1 win over Fort Lauderdale a month ago. They lost 3-1 to an Addie McCain Addie McCain hat trick.
In that Fort Lauderdale matchup, it's not like these are fluke wins, guys. No. In that Fort Lauderdale matchup, I just want to make sure that I get this right. They had almost 2 expected goals, averaging almost 2 expected goals in that match versus a Fort Lauderdale, probably the most potent and deep attack in the league in terms of the players they start, the players they can bring off the bench, held them to 0.7 expected goals. So not only are you seeing improvements on the defensive side of the ball by that number, but you're also seeing just how much the additions of Claire Winter, Amanda Allen, just how much those are opening up other opportunities on the attacking front. I would have never said 2 weeks ago that, oh, they're going to go into this Fort Lauderdale matchup and have a 1.5 expected goal ratio better than the best attacking team in the league.
Right. No, I completely agree. I think this Lexington team, they just needed to see results for themselves and then have that confidence and belief because Dickey's side is still so young. There's so many players on that team who like don't have that experience here in the States at a professional level. And that's something he's hammered home a lot of late. And now that they have it, you're starting to see results. One team in particular, Marion, that we've allowed to kind of fly under the radar is Spokane. They're a team, they only have one win on the season. You've mentioned the fact that they just haven't been dynamic enough in the attack, but how can we see more consistency out of them to get some results here?
Yeah, I mean, and I want your input here too, because obviously you and I watch these games week in, week out. We talk to players, coaches. It's predictable. I don't know any other way to put it than we're going to try and get this ball to Amina Ekic. If we can't get the ball to Amina Ekic, we're going to try to go over the top to Mackenzie Weiner. And for me, it's just all too predictable right now, especially, and this is the challenge with such a small league at the moment. It is so easy to hone in on tendencies because you are seeing these same teams over a course of 3 to 4 weeks. You're going to meet up with them again, right? There's more film. There's more ways to accurately compare, contrast, because you have similar opponents all the time.
Right.
And so I do think that the attacks in this league are up against a little bit of a challenge in terms of the creativity that's needed to consistently win week in, week out, but it just feels too predictable.
I want to throw a little spin on this one with Spokane because they're playing Tampa Bay on Sunday. It is their final home match of the fall schedule. So could the road games give them this extra edge and this extra time together that they haven't had to have them like really focus on what you're just speaking about?
Yeah. Look, two things on that. First of all, collegiate level, pro level doesn't really matter. Road trips are incredible in terms of team culture because you don't have friends. They're great. Family, they're great. They're going to come watch you. We love it. But when you're on the road, most of the time, those factors are dialed down a bit. And you really do just focus on the teammates that are with you and the task at hand. You want to get in, do your job, get out, and go back home. And so sometimes that directed focus really does make a difference in the 90 minutes. The other part that I'll add to this is we actually haven't seen Tampa. I mean, honestly, Tampa Bay are excluded from all these conversations because we haven't seen them play in the month of October. So I would argue that, while Tampa Bay is going to be rested in terms of match fitness, they're also going to be out of date in terms of match fitness. And so having kind of those match mental reps is going to favor Spokane, absolutely. And I think that they're going to try and close this October out really well. The other thing I'm excited for Spokane about is just the fact that when we have the October international window, Spokane is obviously going to be impacted by several of their players because they are a talented team. But those big time players are going to go away. And that kind of individual mindset isn't going to be able to work for this group because you're not going to be able to find Amina Ekic. She's going to be gone. Right. And so I do think that perhaps the international window also poses an interesting time for Spokane to get some of that team oriented, creative attack back in the mix.
The international window starts for Spokane and they lose the most players than any other team in the league. They are losing Amina Ekic to Bosnia. They're losing Sofia Brandt to Argentina, and they're losing Riley Tanner to Panama. Yeah. 3 different players who play 3 completely different roles in this Spokane system. So when you look at not just this match against Tampa Bay, but then they hit the road for 6 straight matches. How can they use this time away from their key stars and maybe get Reese involved in a different way or Weiner doing something different, not just the full focus on what Ekage is doing.
Right. It's going to be the next woman up mentality, but it's also going to be a little bit of a force for the creativity to have to happen. So when Amina Ekic is on the field, are you really forced to be creative, or are you just going to say she's good at what she does? We're going
Right.
to get her the ball. We're going to let her do 1v1, get to the top box, whatever you want to do. Go for it. Well, when she's not there, how are you going to respond? You're not going to have those same kind of 1v1 isolated matchups. There's going to have to be a new wrinkle to the attack. And I really think it's going to force the coaching staff for Spokane and the players of Spokane, like a Mackenzie Weiner, to put a different hat on and start thinking about ways that they can break defenses down a bit more consistently. Because you mentioned it, Riley Tanner, incredible player out on the width. Her service is going to be missed. I mean, we've talked about a lot. And then when you look at who's our other one?
Sophia Braun.
Sophie. I mean,
yeah,
those are arguably three of your biggest players. You still have a good core to the roster, but it's going to have to be more of a team collective effort as opposed to some of the individuality that we've been seeing of late that really hasn't gotten them the consistent results I think that we expected.
It's not just Spokane that has this big international window, and that's also not to disregard Brooklyn's Salma Amani. She was selected to Morocco's national team during that international window. But you look at the U.S. youth national team at the U19 level, Fort Lauderdale's Reese Klein, Lexington's Emma Johnson, Carolina's goalkeeper Charlotte Berg, and Dallas's Silly Strawn. 4 pieces, really young in this Super League experience. But you look at the league in general, how exciting is it for this young talent to have this exposure that gives this league an opportunity to continue to have a spotlight globally, really?
I love it. I love, and I've said this on here multiple times, I love what the league represents for the youth.
Yeah, me too.
Obviously, we know the marketing is really, especially for these local clubs, it's really geared towards youth players and trying to get them involved, trying to get them out to a match. But we also know that the structure from the league perspective is there to provide multiple pathways for the youth groups, whether we're talking about USLW or whether we're talking about this conversation that has to be had between playing professionally and losing your college eligibility. And Super League is that bridge where you can have truly the best of both worlds. And so just to put this into perspective, youth national teams are a really interesting thing. We can talk about it in a bunch of different ways, but a lot of players will actually go under the radar until they go off to their college teams, and then they'll have a great freshman season. They'll get invited to the U18s, U19s, U20s, depending on the age, but that's all because they've been playing on the platform of their college university. Now Super League is offering that platform at a much younger level, again, still not taking away from the fact that they can go play college soccer. And so I do think it's posing a really interesting opportunity for players who maybe don't play at a great youth club, maybe they're not at the highest level of ECNL, but they're involved in this professional league. And now the youth national teams are seeing a player that they never would have seen or would have seen, 3-4 years from now.
And they have their hands on them now and are able to develop them now. One of those key pieces, and really is the big story from this past weekend, is Carolina's forward Stella Spitzer, 14 years old, debuts in the Super League. She's the youngest player to ever debut in this league. It brings up the question of, what is the right age to get involved in a professional league, right? Spitzer's only 14 years old. Like, so crazy to just think about her ceiling and how much she has to develop. And to your point, Marion, Spitzer is an academy signing, so she still has that NCAA eligibility if she chooses to go that route. But Spitzer, a player who is from Ohio, she chose to play club in Dallas, so she moved to Dallas, and now she's in Charlotte, North Carolina, playing with this Ascent side. Just shows her maturity. I was sidelining that game. She is a very skinny, small girl. She definitely looks like a 14-year-old, but she went into this really hard tackle with Mackenzie George and came out on the other end and won the ball. I think it just shows that you give these players like the confidence, you get them on the field and this type of exposure. You have to be smart with how you do it. I think Poole's done a really nice job of thinking about, okay, we're up there's nothing like lying on this game because there's about 10 minutes left and we're going to win it. But she just added confidence. And the whole team was so excited when she stepped on the field. Like, it was just so fun to see such a young player who we've heard, really working hard on training deserve this opportunity.
Yeah, there is this naivety, right, that comes with some of these youth players where they don't know any better than to just get into a hard challenge because all they know
Yeah.
how to do is compete. And you're right, there's a balance. And I would argue strongly a responsibility on the head coaches of these youth players to ensure that that competition and that kind of innocence isn't taken for granted and is only used to develop and get better and better. That being said, there are actually a couple of, I think of four right off the bat. And this is no knock to any coach in the USL. I'm just going off of background and knowledge that I have currently. But Philip Poole is one of the top ones that I would say any youth player, any youth international, thinking about coming over here and trying to dip your toe in the professional water, he would be phenomenal at that balance, right? I think about Tyrone Mears, just with his background. He knows and he has seen what the most elite academy levels look like, and he knows how to develop that kind of talent at Fort Lauderdale. Mike Dickey, we've talked about his experience at the youth national team levels and seeing really what the youth national team likes and the type of players that they like, the type of characteristics that they like. And then if I had to pick, honestly, Fred Briant at DC Power, again, with a similar background to Tyrone Mears, knows how to figure out the balance of exposure versus overexposure and pressure versus enjoyment. And that's really going to be the key to some of these youth players moving forward.
The Super League's done a great job of getting some of these young players in and some really talented players in their first ever league. But you can never skip over the fact that they have brought in some amazing coaches who have really helped develop young talent just this early on in the season. And that's something, honestly, we should dive deeper on a different day, is just each individual coach and how we
get them on here.
Yeah, get them on the show and chat about like how they've helped these young players grow. Spitzer reminds me of, this is an opportunity like Mallory Swanson when she was Mallory Pugh back in the day, a really young player, didn't go to college, opted for the professional route. And look at her career and what she's been able to do with the U.S. national team and at the NWSL level. It is, if you handle the situation right, it can go very well. And right now, there really is no better coach to do it than Coach Poole with what he's done with Spitzer and handling this situation. So kudos to Spitzer getting out on the field, 14 years old, competing against 30, 31-year-old women. Really cool accomplishment for her.
What were you doing at 14, Anna?
Yeah, that's a great question. Getting C's in my geometry test is what I was doing.
Absolutely same. I'm right there with you.
Well, don't go anywhere. We have plenty left to come on game week. We're going to talk about some of the inconsistencies in front of goal that we have seen of late. And of course, Lexington's captain, Shea Moyer, joins the show. This is Game Week on SiriusXM.
Bringing you up to date on all the action from a busy weekend of women's soccer. This is USL Super League Game Week on SiriusXM FC.
Welcome back into Game Week on SiriusXM alongside Marion Crowder. I'm Anna Witte. We have seen a lot of inconsistencies when it comes to the goal scoring in the Super League of late. Of all the chances created, 3 of the top 5 players when it comes to chances created are defensive-minded players. The one leading the way is Katie Duong for DC in the midfield. And then you look at the player leading in assists in the Super League, Marion. It's Lexington center back and Madison Perez with 5. Why is this inconsistency in front of goal been something teams have been struggling with in the last few weeks?
Yeah, I wish, honestly, I wish I could answer that. I do think that we're seeing a lot of rush decision making in front of goal for the attackers of late. But, we talked that this was a trends focused type of show. And we talked about the young talent. We've talked about as quickly as tides can change, they can go from good to bad or from bad to good. And now we're talking about really a two-way street in terms of the inconsistencies in front of goal, but on the same note, the defensive prowess that we've seen across the league. So there is some silver lining to the rush decision making and to the individuality that we're seeing for a lot of teams right now that are lacking on the offensive score sheet. But obviously, I want to say this stat with a caveat. We know that the attackers are going to take more shots innately, okay? So their shots to shots on goal ratio is going to be innately lower than someone who, let's say, only takes 4 shots through 4 matches and 2 of those are on target, right? Like we get that. Defenders don't get near the opportunity in front of goal that attackers get. But it does seem that the attackers are converting when it matters most. And if you're just looking at it right now, there's a 44% conversion rate for defenders in front of goal as opposed to 25% from the other players across. That's across the league. That's not team specific. That's across the league. Right. But if you want some team specific examples, you got Wolf Bauer for DC, the club's only brace coming from your starting center back.
Right.
Then you've got Vicky Bruce. 3 of 8 Carolina Ascent goals have come from Vicky Bruce, including the inaugural first match. And then for Thomas, Spokane's first win, center back. And then when you look at, who else am I looking at right here? I'm looking at 4 of the 8 first goals for Super League clubs all came off the foot of a defender. Yeah. And then last but not least, you mentioned Madison Perez, not only leading in assists, but her fellow center back, Shepard, tied for second most goals in a campaign at 3.
Right.
And so all of that is the defensive prowess and the silver lining that leads us to, Anna, exactly what you pointed out, the inconsistencies in front of goal that really need to be improved. We talked about Spokane being a bit too predictable. We talked about Dallas underperforming immensely. I think in terms of the roster, the attacking roster that they have, not producing the goals that we thought we would see from them. And then Brooklyn, a perfect example, 23 shots across their last 2 matches versus Carolina, only 6 of them on target for a 26% shot on goal ratio. Most of this coming from the fact that we're seeing defensive improvement game in, game out, but also because we're seeing rushed decision-making from a plethora of our attacking group right now. And we just need to see a little bit of that creative spark start to fly back in the Super League.
You look at Brooklyn, and one of the key words that their head coach, Jess Silva, talked a lot about was just wanting freedom in the attack for their players. And I think that's a good thing. But to build off your point, you need structure, especially when we're headed in to match day 11. There aren't that many games that have been played, 6 to 9 when you look across the league. So I think what we're looking for is maybe a little bit more direction and less freedom at times for some of these attackers, especially when teams aren't finding that consistency at this point of the year. So we'll see what happens in match day 11. Those matches are actually starting tonight. Brooklyn against Tampa Bay at 7:30 on Peacock. DC Power against Lexington Friday at 7:30 on Peacock as well. Dallas will play against Carolina on Friday at 8 p.m. on Peacock. Yeah, that's a good one at the Cotton Bowl Stadium. And then Brooklyn hosts Fort Lauderdale Sunday at 2 p.m. on Peacock. And then to wrap up the weekend, Spokane will host Tampa Bay Sunday at 5 Eastern. That is going to be Spokane's final home match of the fall schedule. So a lot at stake for Spokane, looking for their second win of the season. A lot of inconsistencies that we've seen from some of these teams, but there are some consistency. One of those being Lexington's midfielder, Shea Moyer. They have found what's worked for them. Really fun conversation, so don't go anywhere. It's Game Week on the SiriusXM app.
Bringing you up to date on all the action from a busy weekend of women's soccer. This is USL Super League Game Week on SiriusXM FC.
Welcome back into Game Week. We are now joined by Lexington's captain, Shea Moyer. Shea, thanks so much for joining the show. We have been so impressed with how well your team has been playing of late. But before we get into the big picture, we want to get to know you a little bit more. How did you end up on this Lexington squad?
Right. It's a good question. After college, I played 3 years abroad, first in Iceland, then in Israel, then in Turkey. But I've always kind of wanted to play football in the U.S. And so when I heard about the new league starting, I was trying my best to somehow get back here. And I actually knew our head coach, Mike Dickey, from like years ago with like old regional team and national team stuff. So I got in contact with him and came down here on trial, and luckily everything worked out exactly as I could have wanted it, and I'm here and I'm super grateful.
Yeah, Shea, you mentioned Mike, and we were actually in the segment before this, we were talking about how incredible Mike Dickey will be with, youth players and developing players for the national team level. I know you've got youth national team experience as well. So just talk to me about what it's been like reconnecting with a coach like Mike and having someone like him in your corner, especially when we're all in this new league and we don't really know what to expect. Having someone like Mike must be a huge comfort.
Yeah, that's actually a great way to put it. A huge comfort. Kind of felt like a full circle moment because I also knew our sporting director, Michelle Rayner, beforehand. When I was recruiting, like doing my college recruiting, I visited Kentucky and she was one of the coaches there at the time. So kind of felt like a weird serendipitous full circle moment with both she and Mike. But just knowing like that you can have those people to rely on, and it does bring like just the sense of like comfort and confidence. And yeah, I'm really grateful that he gave me this opportunity to even be here in this league. Yeah.
We love that you're in Lexington's facility right now and we can hear both your team and the boys team having a time.
As I'm having this, I'm like, they've been quiet for like the past like 20 minutes. And now like once the interview starts, apparently something's like very funny over there. So sorry for any background noise.
No,
how cool
is that to have, after Marion's point, how cool is it to be a part of and be able to be around all of it all the time?
It's really awesome. I think it's really special to come to a club that already has roots. Like the men's team has already been here for a few years, and there's obviously the youth program. And so I think it's really special to already come in with like this fan base and with this club that's already developed, and now we're like the new team. And it's just been like, I don't know, it's really special. I know that's not the case for all the new teams in the league, but it's really special actually to just be able to like support each other as well. We go to a lot of the men's games and they come to ours, and we try our best to like go to the youth games as well, or like make our appearances there, and it's really special.
Yeah, we were talking about how it kind of feels like college, but speaking of college, Penn State Nittany Lion, along with Anna here. You both know Penn State is one of the most consistent programs in terms of producing elite talent, making really deep runs in the postseason. But Shea, you've also been at the youth national team levels. I mean, pretty much at every single age group. But aside from that, if I read correctly, you're also a personal trainer. Are you doing that right now as an athlete?
I am not. So a sad thing about me is that I didn't realize, when I was choosing my degree, that was not at all what I wanted to do.
It happened.
I studied it, and I personally like really like the study itself, and I'm very interested in the in the material that I learned, but I realized it was just for my own benefit. I studied
telling other people. You were like, absolutely not.
Yeah. So I'm like a certified personal trainer, and I plan on never doing anything related to that.
That's fair.
So I do have
what do you want to do?
That's a good question. I do have to figure out like a life plan post football in my head, and I also have like no background in this, so I would need to learn a lot, but I would love to have my own cafe one day. Yeah.
Ooh, what kind of cafe? Like coffee and food?
Coffee, pastries, maybe something that turns into like a chill bar type deal with wine at night, something like that.
I don't know if you ever get up to like Nashville, and I think that there are other locations, but that is very reminiscent of the Frothy Monkey. If anybody's familiar, it's a little, I don't know if it's a local chain. Honestly, if they ever hear this, I'm sorry if I don't know. But I did so my husband was a minor league baseball player, and he was playing for the Nashville Sounds at the time. And I needed a place, Shea, to just be able to go and sit all day, right? Like from, hey, breakfast, work, and then like, I mean, the game's not going to start until 7, so like even dinner. And
Right.
they had like, it was coffee shop turned like wine cafe.
Yes.
At night. It was incredible. If you ever get up that way, you need to go see it, because that's like what I'm envisioning. And yeah.
You guys have been on this streak. The last 3 games you've been able to get 7 points out of. Most recently, you beat Fort Lauderdale a month ago. They beat you guys 3-1 in your home. What has been that change for you guys in the last 4 weeks where things are really clicking on both sides of the ball?
It's funny. I don't think there's something specific that I would say changed. I feel like we've just stuck together, like through all of the good times and the bad times. Obviously, there was that spell where we weren't getting results, and I think it's easy to stick together when you're getting good results. It's a lot harder when things aren't going your way, but it's a testament to everyone on our team, because through the good times and the hard times, we've just stuck together. And I feel like, all we've been doing is the same stuff. Like, we're trying to uphold our standards, and it's just starting to click for us. And I think we're gaining some momentum with these results, and I hope that, it's going to continue. It's quite fun to win. And it's been nice to, be able to celebrate with our whole team, those wins, and with the whole club.
Yeah, it's much more fun to win, obviously, than it is to lose. But to your point, and I can speak from this, my time at Georgia specifically, when we went through a coaching change, we went through, a stretch of like 6, 7, we're not getting a win, we're losing, right? Like, and I remember the locker room and coming into the locker room and this feeling of tension and burden and everybody just like walking on eggshells. And it took a couple of really special people to like break that cycle. So I want you to take me inside the locker room kind of. I know you said that you guys just banded together, but I know that it's much deeper than just it all happened to band together. Like, that is a purposeful locker room to be able to do that.
100%. I think exactly what you talked about when you're not getting the results that you want to get. I think tension is a perfect word. Like, it's tough because everyone wants the same thing. Like, we're all trying our best to obviously get this result. So when it's not working, there is that like palpable tension. And I think like throughout that time, like, we've had difficult conversations with each other, and it is a lot of like problem solving, trying to fix things and trying to figure out what's going to work. But again, I think it's just a testament to our team culture. Like, we all love each other, and we all like, I can't explain it. I feel like it's hard to explain it unless you're actually in the locker room itself. It's like a very special team. Like, I genuinely love everyone on the team, and I feel like just having those relationships outside of the pitch make it easier during hard times as well. Cause I'm like, no matter what, like, we're with each other. So yeah, I think it's definitely been harder than, what it seems probably at times, but like you said, like, I think it's hard to come in each week, but yeah, it's just a testament to the team. And I think genuinely just how much we love each other and care for each other and want the best for each other. I think that's been like a huge thing to fall back on. And so I think that's why it's made the wins even more special, because we know that like we just stuck together through it. And yeah.
And you can see it when you guys win, like your facial expressions, the way you celebrate the goals, it's huge. But Shea, you are the captain of this team. So this spell of losses and now this spell of results, how has this tested you as a leader?
It's definitely tested me. I think it's an absolute honor to be the captain in the inaugural year of the season. And it's a privilege, and it's not a position that I take lightly by any means. So I try my best every day to just show up and be as consistent as I can, no matter like the situation, no matter what's going on. I'm always gonna try to bring my best. But again, I think it's a testament to our team, because as much as I try to be someone that people can rely on, I feel I can rely on everyone on the team to show up when for example, like if a few people aren't feeling like their best, I know that like there will be other people on the team who show up that day and like drive the standards. So yeah, every day I'm trying to come and bring my best self, but it's nice to know that like everyone on the team is doing this as well. And I definitely don't feel like I'm alone in any of this.
That's great. That's cool to hear, kind of the collective effort that it's taken from all of you. Shea, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you a Penn State question on this. So
I knew it's coming.
Here we go. What do you miss the most about State College? Really this time of year. It's October 22nd. I mean, like fall in State College is undefeated.
So incredible. Oh, that's so hard to answer. Well, it's funny because I feel like I don't know, it's so weird because I feel like my time at Penn State, like by the time it was over, I was ready for like something new. But obviously I still follow along with every season, and even like seeing it on Instagram and like watching it on social media, there's just like you can like sense it through. I don't know.
I know.
I don't even know how to explain, but just like it's definitely for me, being under the lights like at Jeffrey still is one of the coolest things. I don't know what you would choose, but just like especially in the fall when the air is crisp and the fans.
Yes.
What would Anna choose?
That's what I would miss. Gosh, I mean, are we being serious? I would miss the Gaff, Shea. Are you kidding me? The Shandy Gaff was the best bar, Marion. It was so fun. Liquor pitchers on Friday nights were where it was at. Yeah.
Not in October.
Always in October. Actually, every 12 months out of the year is what I miss the most. Did you frequent the Gaff, Shea? I hope you went.
I feel like I'm from Pennsylvania, and I'm like 2 hours from Penn State, so I actually feel like I got my good time in the downtown scene post college. Yeah.
Okay.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
A sophisticated
And that's
one.
actually I'm a sophisticated. But I have a lot of family, like cousins who went to Penn State, and they're often going back for tailgates. So it's actually been like nice because I'll go to like tailgates when I'm home if possible. And yeah, I do miss Penn State all the time. It was so awesome.
Yeah, no, I mean, everything about State College is the best. I miss every aspect of it. The soccer aspect, the fun aspect, even the school aspects. It was so fun. And yeah, no, Shea, thank you so much for joining us today. It was so fun to get to know you a little bit more and hear kind of from your perspective what's happening in this Lexington locker room, because it's happening and you guys are getting results. It's happening.
know. Hopefully it will continue against DC on Friday. Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us this week on Game Week. You can catch us every single Wednesday on the SiriusXM app or on YouTube. Also, don't forget to tune into Match Day 11 matches. Those can be found on Peacock. For Marion Crowder, I'm Anna Witte. We'll see you next time. Have a great rest of your week.
You've been listening to USL Super League Game Week on SiriusXM FC.